I know you've seen these probably at least a couple of times a day scrolling through your feed. Move to Thailand. Escape the West. The cost of living is insane. Your mental health will improve and your wallet will thank you. Southeast Asia is the promised land and all you have to do is just get there. Well, I recently made that jump myself by moving out of Berlin and to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So are smart people really fleeing to Asia? And should you join them? Let me tell you what all of those videos have been leaving out. Now, before we get into the whole Asia side of this, I do want to address something that gets thrown around quite a lot. And I know, the West has fallen has become a bit of a meme over time, to the point that it's become its very own content genre by itself at this point. But bear with me, because fundamentally the whole idea of that is worth going through with a bit more detail than it's usually given. So let's strip away all the clickbait and the drama and let's actually look if there's any truth behind all of this. Not in the usual typical exaggerated doomer kind of way, just in a plain factual, this is sort of what to expect as an average person kind of way. The West has not collapsed, the West hasn't fallen, but there is a definite struggle out there for the average person, and unfortunately that is unlikely to change anytime soon. Let's start with one of the most fundamental crises right now. Housing. Across the US, UK, Germany, Australia, virtually every single Western country is in the middle of a housing affordability crisis. The median home in the US now costs 5 times the median household income. The ratio hasn't been this bad since records began. And the honest reality for most people watching this is without a well above average salary, and the jobs that actually pay those salaries are becoming increasingly rare, home ownership is simply not on the table. That's not pessimism. It's just mass. And it's not just housing. Wages have been effectively stagnant in real terms across most of Western Europe and North America since 2020. Energy prices, particularly in Germany, which made some, shall we say, controversial energy policy decisions that are still being paid for now, have reached levels that would have seemed unthinkable a decade ago. And sitting above all of this is the slow creep of AI, which isn't coming for everyone's job tomorrow, but is already here, applying pressure to exactly the kind of mid-level knowledge work that the entire generation were told was a safe path. And then there's the political and social climate. The stable, moderate, broadly functioning democratic environment that Western Europe in particular built its entire identity around for the last 40 years, it's visibly fraying. The rise of the right across Germany, France, the Netherlands, Italy, it's not fringe anymore. The rhetoric is mainstream, and it's broadly resonating particularly with younger people, not because they've suddenly shifted politically, but simply because they see no other way out. And for a lot of them, it's one more reason the place they grew up in feels less and less like somewhere they recognize. So when people say they want out, I absolutely get it. The reasons to look elsewhere are absolutely legitimate. And the loudest option by far that just keeps coming up is of course Southeast Asia, and more specifically Thailand. It always is Thailand, isn't it? So we've established that that frustration is very much real. And into that frustration steps an entire content machine with a very simple message and a very simple solution. Just move to Thailand. Now, Thailand didn't end up in this position by accident. Over the last several years, it has become the undisputed cultural poster child of the Escape the West movement. And it's not just one type of content pushing this. You've got your hustle bros selling you the 4-hour work week from a Chiang Mai cafe. You've got your passport bros telling you that Western women are the problem and Southeast Asian culture is the solution. You've got your lifestyle influencers doing cost of living breakdowns from rooftop pools. You've got your West has fallen accounts telling you the whole thing is burning down and you need to get out. Different genres, different audiences, but they all point at the same destination, and they're all feeding off the same underlying frustration. And it's worth being clear about something. This is a commercial ecosystem. These creators are monetizing your frustration. The dream being sold to you is curated, selective, and has direct financial incentive behind it. That does not automatically make it wrong, but it does mean you are looking at a highlight reel, not a documentary. The cheap street food makes the video. The bureaucratic visa nightmare doesn't. The rooftop pool makes the thumbnail. The loneliness of being a foreigner in a country whose language you don't speak, that doesn't tend to make the cut. So yes, absolutely, there is a huge, well-oiled content machine selling you the idea that Southeast Asia is the solution to all of your problems. And as we've established, the underlying frustrations are completely legitimate. But a legitimate problem does not automatically validate a legitimate solution, especially one that's being sold to you so blatantly. So let's have a look at what the reality actually is. Now, this is a part where the internet is actually not lying to you, because the economic foundation of the just move to Asia trend is real. It comes down to something very simple. Your money does just go a lot further here. That is the simple core of it. Housing is cheaper, food is cheaper, transport is cheaper, everyday services are cheaper. And when you add all of that up, it's not just that you're surviving on less, it's that the day-to-day life you can actually afford out there is often materially better than what the same money would get you back home. You can eat without thinking twice. You can take a cab everywhere without it feeling like a budget decision. And you'll still have money left over at the end of the month. And if you're earning remotely in a stronger foreign currency while living here, that advantage compounds. For some people, that means maintaining the same lifestyle they had back home while working significantly less. For others, it means genuinely upgrading their lifestyle while spending the same or even less than before. That is a real and meaningful shift in how your daily life feels. But this is where the content machine starts to stretch the truth. The prime expat zones of Bangkok, Bali, Chiang Mai, these are no longer bargain territory. The rooftop pools, the aesthetic cafes, the villas, a lot of that is curated. A fair amount of these creators are living in the most inflated pockets of the region while still selling you the idea that it's all effortlessly cheap. Even so, a decent, comfortable life that would cost you a painful amount back home is often significantly cheaper to build out here. That part is not a myth. But that is also exactly what tends to get people in trouble. Because once you start feeling that economic breathing room, it's very easy to mistake it as something that is permanent, to let your guard down, to fall into something that I like to call the forever vacation trap. So here's where things go wrong for a lot of people. They fall into the forever vacation trap because the content selling you this whole idea is really good at convincing you of the move itself, but they are considerably less good at covering what actually happens when you get there. The message is often that the move itself is the solution. Get there and things will just work themselves out. The reality is considerably messier than that. A surprisingly large number of people arrive in Southeast Asia with some savings, a one-way ticket, and a general attitude of I'll figure it out when I get there. And look, that optimism is understandable, admirable even, but just being in a new place does not automatically solve everything, because most people arrive as tourists, and staying as anything other than a tourist is where things get complicated. Thailand, which as we've established is the poster child for all of this, does now have a dedicated digital nomad visa, the DTV, introduced in 2024, and on paper it's genuinely good. 180 days per entry, valid for 5 years, but it comes with real requirements. You need to show roughly 500,000 Thai baht in liquid savings, around 14,000 USD, held for at least 90 consecutive days, plus verified proof of remote income or enrollment in a qualifying cultural program. It's not an impossibly high bar, but this is a real one that a lot of people showing up with a backpack and a dream have not cleared. And the reality for a lot of people who haven't sorted any of this before they arrive is a visa run, hopping across a border every 30 to 60 days to reset your tourist stamp and hope they let you back in. And historically, it worked, until it doesn't. Thailand and several other countries in the region have been actively cracking down. Immigration officers are increasingly flagging people doing repeated entries with no clear purpose. It's a gray area that a lot of people have been quietly living in, but it is simply not a stable foundation to build your life on. And then there is the money, even at Southeast Asian prices. And yes, as we've established, it is cheaper. If you're not earning, your savings are not going to last forever. The runway feels longer than it would back home, and that genuinely is part of the trap.
Thailand is seeing more foreign nationals fall into homelessness, particularly in places such as Bangkok and Phuket, where long stays can appear affordable and easy to manage. Some reportedly arrive without enough savings, insurance, or reliable support, then find themselves stranded after illness, scams, or other sudden setbacks. Bangkok Community Help Foundation has expanded its work to assist these foreigners as well.
A breathing room makes it easy to relax, to tell yourself you'll sort the income side next week, next month, and that you can still afford it for now. And before long, you're 6 months in, significantly lighter in the bank, and no closer to having something solid lined up. Finding remote work from scratch in a foreign country is often considerably harder than what people imagine. Starting a business takes longer than what people imagine, and starting from zero while your savings quietly deplete around you is a deeply stressful place to be. And that is exactly what leads into the phenomenon now being widely called post-Thailand depression. You've probably seen these videos. Someone returns home after weeks or months abroad and films themselves talking about how great everything feels, how slow, how expensive, how unkind the people are, how pointless everything feels by comparison. And while part of that is absolutely just the vacation effect, it's also this. The crash is real. The savings ran out, the visa situation became untenable, or both, and the return home feels like a failure because the dream was sold as permanent, and reality turned out to be considerably more temporary. The people that actually manage to make this last long term, and there are many of them, I'm one of them, are the ones that start out with a plan before they've even left. Remote work sorted before they even landed. A business already running. Freelance income that's already established. The move works as a lifestyle upgrade when the foundations are already present. It does not work as the foundation itself. Alright, let's actually talk what happens when you actually get there. Because there are a few inconvenient truths that people tend to not put into their content, and they're worth going through honestly. First, you will probably never fully integrate. No matter how long you stay, no matter how much of the language you pick up, you will always be a foreigner. That is simply the reality of being a foreigner living in Southeast Asia long term. And look, that's fine. The expat lifestyle in these countries is well established, and for a lot of people, more than enough to be happy. But if you've been quietly imagining that after a couple of years, you'll somehow slot right into local life and it'll start feeling like home, that's probably not how it goes. For some people, that reality lands harder than others. It's worth knowing going in. Second, new friction replaces old friction. The stuff that frustrated you back home might go away initially, sure, but it gets replaced by a different set of friction points. Cultural differences, language barriers, social norms you're just not used to that catch you off guard regularly. Having to adapt yourself to fit an environment in a way you've probably never had to in your home country. Southeast Asia is not a promised land without problems. It's just a different set of problems. And depending on who you are, some of those problems could actually feel harder to deal with than the ones you left behind. And here's the thing. For some people, that friction is actually the whole point. The novelty, the adaptation, the sense of figuring out something new. That's all genuinely enriching for a certain type of person. But for other people out there, all they wanted is a cheaper version of their life back home. And that's fine too. Those are two very different experiences in the same place, and figuring out which one of those you want is worth doing before you go. What I will say is this: the one friction point that categorically does tend to be lower out here is the economic one. The financial pressure that grinds people down back home is genuinely reduced, and for a lot of people that single factor has an outsized effect on their overall quality of life, but it does not exist in isolation. The cultural friction, the social friction, the feeling of permanent foreignness, those are all real and they compound with time. How much any of that matters is entirely individual. For some people, these are deal breakers. For others, they barely register. But they do exist. And the content selling you the dream tends to gloss over all of it. So yes, the move is real. The economics are real. The lifestyle upgrade can be real. But it is not a magic fix. And that brings me to the last thing I want to say, and possibly the most important thing. So here's the last thing I want to say, and possibly the most important thing. Moving to Southeast Asia is not a magic fix. It is not some kind of a smoking gun solution to everything that the West is putting you through. It is a simple geography change, and a geography change alone will not change you as a person. There's actually a name for the belief that moving somewhere new will fix your internal problems. It's called the geographic cure, and while it comes up most often in addiction recovery literature, it applies broadly to anyone who has ever thought, if I could just get out of here, everything would be different. The idea is understandable. It's human. But what a change of location actually fixes is external. Your economics, your immediate environment, the cost of your rent and your dinner. What it does not fix is internal. Your habits travel with you. Your discipline, or lack of it, travels with you. Your relationship with money travels with you. The environment changes, the person inside it doesn't. Not automatically anyway. And this is what connects back to that post-Thailand depression we talked about earlier. A lot of those people weren't just sad that the holiday ended. They've been quietly hoping that the move would somehow reset something for them. And when they got home and realized it hadn't, that the same version of themselves had been there the whole time. That's where the real crash comes from. The geography changed, everything else stayed the same. From my own experience in KL so far, I would have to say that the economics are broadly true. I'm eating well, I'm doing more things. Living in a fully serviced condo with a gym and pool actually means that I'm hitting the gym regularly, something that was not possible for me in Berlin. The breathing room is real, but I'm also aware that that does not mean I get to switch my brain off. The stuff that needs doing still needs doing. The work doesn't do itself just because the view outside the window is a bit nicer. The move gave me the conditions to do better, but as always, what you do with those conditions is up to you. And here's the thing, a change of environment genuinely is one of the easiest catalysts for changing yourself. Not because the place does the work for you, but because removing yourself from familiar surroundings, familiar routines, familiar pressures, it creates a window, a moment where change feels more possible than it did back home. The window is real, but you have to actually climb through it. So, are smart people fleeing to Asia? Some of them, yeah. Should you join them? Maybe. If you have the means, honestly, give it a go. The economics are real, the lifestyle upgrade is real, and the reset it can offer you is genuinely valuable. Just go in with your eyes open. Know what it can and cannot do for you, and know that it is not a magical promised land. But it very well might be the window that you needed. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far through the video and liked it, consider subscribing and hitting the like button. It helps me out a ton. Subscribe if you want to see more of this style of content, and I'll see you in the next one.